Minister now know what we're talking about is change.
Goddamn, we done did it again.
Allow rumination. You see, they want to devour me. Allow rumination. You see, they want to destroy me. Allow rumination. They are greedily seeking for my being. Allow rumination. You see, they want to overwhelm me.
Use us, use us, use us.
They want to use us.
Finish us, finish us,
They
finish
won't
us.
finish us.
Cage us, cage us,
They
cage
just
us.
a cage us.
Squeeze us, squeeze us,
They
squeeze
won't
us.
squeeze us.
Wreck us, wreck us, wreck
If they
us.
go wreck us,
Break us, break us,
they
break
go feel
us.
break us.
Kill us, kill us,
They
kill
won't
us.
kill us.
Freeze us, freeze us,
They
freeze
won't
us.
freeze us. Think for survival. We need to pray for survival. We go protest to protect for survival. We got to give for survival. We must to save innocent lives, and we need to love one another. Me, I go scream for survival. I go plan, strategize, build for survival. I go sing sweet song, sing for survival. I go walk for survival. Say me, I go make money for survival. Then I'll be rich for survival.
Oh, tell me, what I want for this our country, where everything I wash just like laundry. I say this right here for all and sundry. This kind thing no be play like monkey. Everyone's pretty vexed up and hungry, with hopes torn, long gone with belongings. Everything's gone wrong, yeah, my people complain. We voted for change, but all we get to see is same. Country people them, how we want see peace, where we can't settle differences at home at least. Police brutality be all we see on the streets. NSAS don't end, now I can walk with my niece. See, I'm just trying to get a little more at least. Put some foot up in the crib with my songs released. PACN got me feeling the heat. The gas prices and crisis just don't come cheap. No fuel, no light, even we they on strike. Man, I'm tired of these leaders when if we do right. Truly, all of my life I've been settling for less. It's about time I did something to sort out this mess. Handling business in an old school fashion. Put it on wax, start up a chain reaction. Something like a revolution with a cause. I'm a public enemy rebelling without a pause, of course.
Bad Belle,
Change for survival.
Olumide,
Change for survival.
Jagaban,
Change for survival.
Chukwemeka,
Change for survival.
Musadan Ladi,
Change for survival.
G-Boys,
Change for survival.
Mr. President,
Change for survival.
Election leaders,
Change for survival.
spiritual leaders,
Change for survival.
militants,
Change for survival.
Boko Haram,
Change for survival.
kidnappers,
Change for survival.
Omo Ibile,
Change for survival.
headsmen,
Change for survival.
social media, Sorosoke, Jamaa,
Change for survival.
PHCN,
Change for survival.
APC,
Change for survival.
PDP,
Change for survival.
APGA,
Change for survival.
NNPC,
Change for survival.
EFCC,
Change for survival.
military.
Change for survival.
My fellow Nigerians, calling out.
Good morning. Good to be with you again today on Summit, our political program which comes to you live from our studios here in Lagos. My name is Jumoke Michaels. Banji, good morning.
Jumake, it's good to be here.
Yeah.
And Nigeria is indeed progressing, and it's a thing of joy to know that yesterday in the city of Abuja, we had rice pyramid. Have you ever heard of anything like that?
No,
Rice
no,
pyramid.
it's
We
the
used to have groundnut pyramid in the
pyramid.
north. Yesterday, President Muhammadu Buhari actually launched rice pyramid in Abuja, signaling what you may call food sufficiency for us. That is the era of crashing the bags, the prices of rice from maybe 24 to maybe 6. If you get to the market and get a bag of rice for 6,000 naira, then you certainly know that this government is serious when it comes to agric.
Well,
and
I'm
I want to
very
congratulate President Muhammadu Buhari for actually blazing the trail along that direction. Let it be sustained. Sustainability is the issue. We've seen the rice pyramid. Let it be repeated in all the regions of Nigeria. We've seen it now. Let it be seen in Lagos, in Port Harcourt, in other parts of the country, so that rice can go around and the people can put food on their table. My name is Banji Busari.
Well, I pray also that, like what you have said, it actually translates to food sufficiency for all regions of Nigeria. We pray so. All right, but today we are looking at education. We're looking at, we title it 2022 Budget, Adequacy of Education Funding. We know that sometime in July 2021, President Buhari attended the Global Summit on Education in UK. And at that summit, he made a verbal promise that he was going to increase the funding.
The budgetary allocation to yes.
Budgetary allocation for education in Nigeria.
So about 50%, Jumoke.
50%, yes. All right, so we'll use that as a backdrop for our discussion this morning. And we have joining us an education researcher, Dr. Peter Ogdoro. He's also the leader, Nigerian Teachers Online Community. That's a new one. I have not heard that designation before, but where you explain that. You're welcome to the program.
It's my pleasure.
Good to have you.
He's always been our number one person when it comes to education. Information on education.
Yeah.
It's our pleasure.
Oh, thank you.
All right, yes. This leader, Nigerian Teachers Online Community. What is it about? Because the last time I introduced you, this wasn't this wasn't what I used to introduce you. So you could just explain what that is about.
Well, teachers in Nigeria are recognized, underappreciated, under-rewarded. And when I made effort to try to reach those who run the country, to get them to reverse this ugly situation, and we couldn't achieve it. So what I did was to set up an online community of teachers so that we could share resources and provide information which teachers can use to improve the quality of their lives. As of today, we are about 260,000 teachers on that platform. And recently, all the way from America, Facebook took notice of us and gave us an award as a very vibrant and engaged community. And they have given us resources to try to use that platform to provide education and continuous professional development to teachers across the world on an ongoing basis. And that's the project we are on now. It's a big one for Nigeria. In April 11 and 12, we're going to have an international conference bringing the best teachers from around the world to come and help our people acquire the latest techniques in teaching so that we can move away from the current pedagogy, which is about teacher-centered education to that of learner-centered education. That's the only way we can become a country that knows the true value of education and then make it functional and empower people to move forward.
Well, that's a topic on its own, but if you agree with me.
That's
I
just asked him to
yes, we will certainly come back to tell us more, particularly concerning the forthcoming conference. The focus today is on funding, that's educational funding. And just as Jumoke said in our intro, when our president spoke at that international forum, he raised a lot of hopes. And the Nigerians were actually looking forward to something much better than where we are coming from. Don't forget that 2021 budget, the percentage allocated to education was just 5.6% of the entire figure. This time around, so when he was in London in July, and they promised that he was going to increase the budgetary allocation by about 50%. People were looking at 11 to 12%. Even though that's still a far cry from what UNESCO standard is, but he raised some hope. But when the budget came out eventually, it was 1.29 trillion, which represented 7.8% of the budget for this year. Though it's an improvement on that of last year, but still a far cry from what he promised, and even a further far cry from what UNESCO standard is. So what's your take on all that? This promise, was it just to impress the international community?
No, he wasn't necessarily trying to impress the international community. That's what he knew at the time he was making the promise, because he hadn't obviously consulted his lieutenants who were directly in charge of education and the people who run the finance ministry before he made that promise. And again, times change. We live in an evolving world. The security challenges that we have continued to face have continued to make it difficult for the Nigerian government to devote enough resources into critical sectors, especially education. Because the more money you spend on the military, the more money you spend on defense, the less you can have for infrastructure, the less you can have for education. I think that's what their challenge is. But more fundamentally, there are very ignorant people, interestingly. They don't understand that if you want security to become what you desire it to be, the place to start from is education. Because once you fix education, all other problems of the country get fixed. Okay? If you want infrastructure, you first have to be the manpower that will generate the infrastructure. If you want better banking, you have to get better bankers, and better bankers are created by the education system. If you want better medical doctors, you have to first fund medical schools that train them. We don't seem to understand is that education is where everything starts, and so until our political leaders understand the linkage, they won't be able to devote the kind of resources you are thinking they should devote to education. I think that's what the problem is. And of course, those people in the parliament who are training their children abroad are also people who are not likely to insist that the right things have to be done to improve the quality of education we're giving to our children. Those of us who do research in the sector, I know of a truth that the money we are spending on about 20,000 young Nigerians abroad, in UK and America especially, the money we spend on about 20,000 young Nigerians abroad, in those two countries especially, is more than the entire budget for education in Nigeria. And that's how difficult and terrible and scandalous our circumstance is. And of course, you know that we have over 50 million children who are passing through the education system. The money you spend on them is less than the money you're spending on 20,000 young Nigerians who are children of politicians and managing directors of banks abroad.
Well, if we look at the myriad of challenges confronting our education system in Nigeria, how worried are you about this benchmark?
Yeah, you see, we will continue to play the role of a laggard in the international community. You can't become a leader in the true sense of it in any sphere of life, whether it's economic, technological level or social, if you don't invest adequately in education. What we are doing here is not education. What we are doing is schooling. We are just passing our children through the school system, but they are not getting educated. And so in that circumstance, it becomes difficult for you to become globally competitive. So we remain a consumer nation. We continue to import things, really. We live in a world where technology drives everything, but we are not involved in creating technology.
Right,
we are consumers of technology.
We are on national TV, and
yes.
some comments you make,
yeah.
I would just like you to try to break it down.
Yeah.
When you say we are schooling, we are not getting educated.
Yes.
I think we need to
unpack that.
Yeah, break it down.
Yeah. So the point is, on a typical day, the average Nigerian child goes to the place you call school. But what he does is to sit down and listen to a teacher who is not properly trained and is also under-rewarded. Dictate things from textbooks, which the child is compelled to cram, and he's told that he needs to remember those things to be able to pass exam. So he is in the school to pass exam and to get certificate, which he has been deceived into believing will give him job when he graduates from the university. We know that that is not the truth, because the average Nigerian child who is finishing from university today is not going to be able to get a job in virtually any sector, because we don't have the jobs to give, really. So they are passing through that motion of schooling, but education is not taking place, because these children who are in the school system now are not children whose minds have been developed, who are learning how to think, how to reason, who are learning logic, who are learning to question things. And we even, as a people, we're also not brought up to encourage our children to ask us questions. And when they do ask questions, we do not answer the question. So it's even worse in the school system, where the teacher stands there as an expert, so he just, dishes out things that children have to cram, And those children pick up those things and go and write WAEC and NECO and JAMB organized exams without understanding the meaning of what they are cramming and putting into their heads. So that's what we mean by going through motion. They are schooling, they are not getting educated. Educated people are people who can do the thinking, who can come up with new ideas, who can move from, if you do my kind of job, you know that we have what we call hierarchy of effects in the education system. So it starts with knowledge, which is where we still have remained as a people up to university level. But after education, after knowledge, you have to be able to understand what you have been taught by the teacher. Not much of that is taking place. From there, you move to the next higher level, which is application. So you apply what you have understood. From there, you now move to analyzing what you have been taught, and you then progress to synthesizing, bringing knowledge from different places. And lastly, which is where people in advanced societies are, they create new knowledge. So we have remained at the bottom. We are not anywhere close to the peak. And until you are able to move away from merely consuming knowledge and moving gradually towards understanding it and then applying it and gradually analyzing, synthesizing, and creating new knowledge, you are not going to become competitive in the global community we live in today.
Is that why people who were educated in the 60s are said to be better than people that are getting educated now?
Yeah, in some sense. But again, in those days, the whites were still here running the system.
And technology wasn't that expanded.
Yes. Yeah, it's not about technology. It's quality mind that creates the technology, And then even the technology we're looking at today, and we think we have arrived. If you just keep watching, in 10 years' time, this will be a child's play compared to where the world will be. You can see now we talk about electric cars, and which is replacing our oil. And we don't seem to be in a hurry to understand the full implications of that. We still keep thinking that we continue to make money from oil. That is not going to continue to happen. Because the people who have been giving us money because they take our oil are developing alternative means of fueling their cars, of running all other systems that they need to use fuel to run. And so in about 10 years' time, they will have no need to knock on our doors to ask us to give them crude oil, because they will have no need for that. But they will continue to run with technology. They are actually even moving to the moon. You look at what Tesla is doing, all of a sudden, from nowhere, Elon Musk has, moved to number one richest person in the world. What is it that has taken him there? Is proper education. It's not just mere schooling. He studied physics, and that knowledge of science has empowered him to learn to ask questions, question things, and engage his community and mobilize resources to be able to take the world to a new level. That's where we are, but we haven't understood the full implications of those matters.
Sometimes when we host a specialist, or let me say consultants like you, we feel a bit relieved because we believe you have come on air to say those who are manning our educational system are ignorant people.
Very ignorant.
Now, I'd like you to actually break it down, just as Jumoke said. When you say people who are professors, who have seen, they have been administrators, they've been technocrats, and they are now in government and to run the affairs of the country. Somebody like you may be picked up tomorrow to become Minister of Education. Yeah. Nobody will, it probably may be wrong for anybody to come on air and say, because you are not getting it right yet, you are ignorant. Now, let's look at, even if the entire budget for this year, 16 trillion naira, was committed to educational funding, do you think that would actually turn around the deficit we have suffered over time? Would make everything work overnight? We're looking at infrastructural deficit. We're looking at so many other things that have not worked the way they should, according to global standard. Do you think money will turn it around overnight?
No, we have to understand the basic problems that confront our country. You must acknowledge the fact that the people who run the education system in this country are definitely ignorant people. First, the facts. What are the academic credentials and professional experience of the Minister of Education? Where is it coming from? He has a first degree in accountancy. That's, to the best of my knowledge, his highest academic credential. So when you say, if I'm put there tomorrow, both of us don't belong to the same clan. We're not in the same category. I have a PhD in education. I have advanced degree in human resources management. I understand the space. I have trained in the best of countries and institutions around the world. Mention Cambridge, mention Sheffield, mention Reading. I've been there. I have been part of research projects that have generated ideas on how the world education system can function better. So they are not in my class. And there are several people who are Nigerians who have my kind of background, who are willing to come back to this country and make a difference. We are not giving them the chance. Who are the people running the system? And so it's not just about the title, or, you know, of professor. Even if you're a professor in which field? Most of the professors who are operating in the education space are people who studied geography, who studied medicine, who studied, you just name it. But everything they have studied other than education. We have not recognized that education is a discipline, is a profession, and that it takes time to become a professional in education. You go through you know, some curriculum, understand it, and acquire the skills of an educator. You don't become an educator merely by, you know, becoming a professor of medicine. A professor of medicine is a specialist in medicine. Okay, you're a geographer, a professor of geography. We take a professor of geography and you make him minister of education. You take a professor of Islamic studies, you make him head of, don't let's go into those things that are controversial so that we don't get distracted. But that's the point I'm making. If you want to run a proper system, really, when Okonjo-Iweala was here, Okonjo-Iweala made a difference because he studied the relevant discipline. When Adesina was here, Adesina made a difference in agriculture because he studied agriculture. Okay, so all the people who have made differences in our country, go and check. Soludo made a difference when he was chief economic advisor to the president, because he has a PhD in development economics, and we'll see what Anambra State, what is going to become in the nearest future. We have to start respecting knowledge and technical capacity, technical ability of people. We don't just employ people on the basis of titles. You are in media. So tomorrow you bring in somebody who is Dr. Lagbaja, but he studied geology, and you ask him to come and run MITV. How is he going to be able to run it? Just because you have had is a doctor makes him somebody who can come and run MITV. You need knowledge. You have to go through certain systems, acquire principles, understand the theories, know the history of places, and be able to put all of those things together. I was telling you how, the hierarchy of education at first goes. You move from knowledge to understanding things, to applying them, to synthesizing them, doing the analysis, and then being able to create new knowledge. The people running the education system don't understand these things. I train teachers, I train school owners, really. I train people who work ministries of education across the country. Most of the time, when I ask them the meaning of learning, none of them is able to give me a correct answer. If you bring 100 teachers in this country into a hall and ask them to define the concept of learning, you are not likely to find 2 of them give you the correct definition, because they don't know what it means. And until you're able to understand what in the classroom to do, you won't be able to help the children who are sitting before you. Because most of the time, just as I told you, if I ask these teachers, what's learning? Most of them usually tell me learning is acquisition of knowledge. And we know that learning is not acquisition of knowledge. That's what the average Nigerian teacher knows, and that's why we keep emphasizing children, cramming things, copying notes, and regurgitating those and giving them back to us, passing exams. We have this last WAEC result that was released. Were we not told it was fantastic? Our children earned credits in English and mathematics. Many of them had A1. But go and bring those children and ask them, bring problems, generate scenarios, and ask them to use mathematical principles to try to solve those problems. All of them will go blank. Why? It's not the children's fault. They have not been properly trained. It's also not the teachers' fault. The people who run the system have not brought the right people to train these teachers. They go through the motion of schooling. They'll say teacher training, and who are the people training the teachers? The politicians who run the ministries, commissioners of education, minister of education, executive secretaries of different government agencies. They bring their brothers and sisters to, come and do this essential job, because they will bring money.
So you're saying now that politics should be separated from education,
certainly,
especially when it comes to appointments, and all that, because no matter how much money we put into it, if these same people are there, it won't work.
I don't remember any time we have had a geographer as Minister of Justice. I don't remember any time we have had a professor of geology as Minister of Health. Why do we always think that anybody can run education when it is an endeavor that is highly technical? In fact, it's more technical than these other areas. Because if you know the basic things of life, you don't actually have to be a doctor to put resources in place for medical doctors and people running different aspects of medicine to be able to do a proper job. But it is not so in education. You have to understand what it means to be a teacher. I've just told you now that the average Nigerian teacher does not know the meaning of learning. Why are they in the classroom? What are they doing there when they don't even know what the basic responsibility is?
Since our focus is educational funding. Let's bring it. I asked you a question.
So by way of summary on that matter, let us also not be deceived into thinking that money solves all the problems in education. If you increase budgetary allocation to education to 20%, and that money is in the hands of illiterates. When I say illiterates, it's not about ability to read and write in the conventional sense. Illiterates in the context of education. You give them 30% of our national budget to run education. And they don't know what education means. They can't define learning. They have no philosophy that backs up what we want to achieve via education. They waste all the money. So our problem is not just about the fact that we are not funding education well. It's more critically about the fact that the wrong people are in the space where important decisions are being taken regarding education. The money we have at the moment, if that 7.8%, that 7.8% you are talking about, if
1.29 trillion,
almost
1.3 trillion.
If you give me that money, it won't take us more than 2 years. Nigeria will become a net exporter of educational services. I promise you that. It's not just money. You need knowledge. I just told you here, with
due respect to you, probably don't know how the population
they're forget about that.
Working with.
I'm going to provide you the statistics. I have used my private resources to set up a continuous professional development system for 260,000 teachers. Government money is not involved. I'm doing that as a private citizen. I haven't taken a dime from government. So if I'm training 260,000 teachers, why are you thinking that if you give me $1 trillion, that I will not train 30 million people? I haven't borrowed money from them. I'm not owing anyone doing that. It's just knowledge. I went to school to learn how to do it. And all the way from America, Facebook took notice of what we're doing that is benefiting people, teachers across the world. And they're saying, we're going to support you to do more. As we speak, Nigerian government still hasn't taken notice. Facebook took notice all the way from America.
Apart from training, which is core
yes.
to educational excellence.
Yes.
If you have $1 trillion, just as you really
yes.
said, what are the areas that would actually that will require urgent intervention to redress this?
Number one problem that Nigeria has is teacher education. The people training your children have no business being in the classroom.
Because many of them even teach just because they can't get a job.
I came to this place just because I wanted convenience via Uber. And I got into conversation with the Uber driver who brought me to this studio. So what were you doing before you got into Uber? And he told me he was a teacher. He was teaching for 15 years until about seven months ago. How much were you earning at the time you left? He said he was earning 40,000 naira. Now he makes over 100,000 driving Uber. He has NCE. He also went to school and qualified as a professional teacher. He has Bachelor of Education in Geography. And he has been teaching geography to Nigerian children and preparing some who are even writing international exams. And his children write IGCSE, which is a British exam, and they excel. Nigeria has not recognized the value of such an individual. They have wasted his time. After 15 years, he discovered that he now has children who are in school, and his children cannot afford to go to public schools, and he needs money to be able to pay their school fee. So he dropped education after getting a Bachelor of Education, and with 15 years experience under his belt. The people who are teaching in our classrooms today are people who see that as a stopgap. It's a transition for them. They haven't got the right job because the moment they get what they're looking for, everybody quits the classroom. In proper countries, teachers are recognized as people without whom societies cannot move forward. So you invest in them by way of training, you pay them well. You train them well, and you pay them well.
So what other areas?
Sort out that. Once you sort out, of course, when we say train them, give them the skills and pay them well, then give them the technology with which they will do the job, which means equip the laboratories. And by the time you are doing that, make sure that they have electricity that powers the laboratories. Okay? So you have to fix NEPA. And give them internet access in a modern society. Once you are able to do those basic things, electricity to their laboratories, internet access to the studios where they work, and give them smart devices with which they can interact with their mates from around the world. There's nothing else they're looking for. When these children graduate, they'll give themselves jobs. That's how the world works now. All this whole idea of we're setting up this committee, we're going to create 21 million. I had 21 million jobs in the next 5 years, and that they need over 300 trillion naira to do that. You don't need up to 5% of the amount they're mentioning to create the kind of jobs they're looking to, to create. They just don't know what to do. They haven't understood how the world
things
works.
you have said look so simple and.
It's that simple. I have demonstrated it. Take your phone, go to Facebook, type Nigerian teachers. You will see over 260,000 people who are receiving training for free. I'm the one doing it for free. If I can do that with my private resources, what makes you believe that if you give me 1 billion naira, that I won't do several times more than that? It's not just money. You need knowledge, you need skill, you need awareness, you need international network. I've got the network. And several of my friends who are also Nigerians have also got this kind of awareness. But the politicians are not giving us the space to intervene and help our country. And we're wasting everybody's time talking about money all the time. It's not just money. Give illiterates money, they waste it.
If we narrow this down to, maybe let's look at the tertiary education.
Yes.
We have well over 150 public institutions outside even the private institutions as universities, polytechnics, and all that. Now, if you commit even this 1.29 trillion,
yes,
it may be insufficient, inadequate to actually turn around things that we expect high standards. I mean, Unilag graduated students 2 days ago, and we had over 100 first class and all that. Now, people have said that the quality of our education is nothing when you compare with international standard.
Yes.
Now, it shows that many things are wrong. People say infrastructurally, we are not there at all. Now, how best can we arrest this, even if you have the best of money?
Yeah, you need a bit of money to start with. I have used a bit of my own money to start something, but there's not as much money as we always think. I can't overemphasize that matter. But once you get the money, as I have said, make sure you put the right people in the right places. For now, we have round pegs in square holes. It's not going to work. The average vice chancellor in any Nigerian university, go and do the research if you are in my kind of position, and you discover out of about 190 vice chancellors in this country, how many of them have education background? We also think that all you need to become a vice chancellor is the fact that you're a professor. That's also wrong. In the advanced societies, go to Britain. The average lecturer standing anywhere in Britain has been compelled to go back to school to learn how to teach. You need a teaching qualification to be a lecturer in the United Kingdom as we speak. It doesn't matter what you studied. If you become a professor of medicine, they compel you to go and sit down and learn how to teach. Because they know that it doesn't come to you naturally. Nobody is born a teacher. All those ideas are rubbish. I'm a teacher. When people see me deliver in the classroom without a script for hours, they say, he's a born teacher. It's not true. I went to school to learn how to teach. And I practice it, and I'm passionate about it. Yes, you need to be gifted to some extent, but your gift is not enough. In any field in life, you can't just say, I'm a gifted medical doctor, and then without going to school to learn how to do surgery, you get into the theater and you start cutting people's body. Is that how it works? It doesn't. Okay? So let's be serious as a country and invest properly. Let's not be distracted by the issue of money. We need more money, but money alone is not going to solve our problem in education. We need to fix our human capacity to run the system. We haven't got the right people in the right places. We are not teaching our children well. What we are doing now is teacher-centered, teacher and institution-centered education. It's not learner-centered education. Go to the typical classroom in Nigeria and see what you have. You are doing PhD at the University of Ibadan. Go to the average classroom at UI and see the sitting arrangement. The lecturer stands here, everybody sits there facing the lecturer. The world is no longer at that level. We need to sit around table because all of us, whether we are teachers or students, we are resources in the education process. Okay? You are a veteran media practitioner. Why should a lecturer who has never presented a program before always assume that he is the one to teach you how to do presentation when he has never entered the studio before? He has always asked you the question, what are people doing? Then he shares some principles and theories with you, and then you let him know that, yes, sir, this one works, but from my practical experience, I have also discovered that this doesn't work. That's how education is done in the advanced societies. It's not only the lecturer talking. In Nigeria, the lecturer does all the talking, the teacher does all the talking, the students make no contribution. You can't develop quality minds that way. You must recognize that children are resources in the education process.
All right, so please, we have the number on the screen where you can send us an SMS, please. The phone has been ringing, but we prefer you just send us an SMS with your name and your location, where you're sending the message from, and then if it's a question you're asking, our guest will answer, or if it's a contribution, whatever, we can just also address it. We're still talking about funding. From this little explanation you just made from the question Banji asked about, still talking about being trained. You know, we have so many of the states creating more state universities, the federal government establishing more universities, but nobody talks about establishing more colleges of education. If you have this same funding, would you say that you will go in that direction?
No, I won't. Why do you need more colleges of education?
Because we have few compared to state universities.
No,
and
you don't need that. In modern societies, you don't need college of education. You need universities where people who want to become teachers should go and become teachers. Because
that's why Lagos State is upgrading to the university status.
Yeah, NC, especially the way we provide it here, NC is not good quality education. You won't prepare you adequately to be able to run a proper classroom. Go to Austria, go to Norway, go to Finland, go to Sweden, go to Denmark, go to Iceland. You see that the average teacher teaching in a primary school has a master's degree. So your NCE gives you NCE. If you want to go and get a degree, you have to spend another 3 years before you can get a first degree. So why do you want to waste somebody's time doing 3 years to get NCE and then another 3 years to get a Bachelor of Education when you can get everything in 4 years? Why are you wasting his 2 years? That's why those places are not popular. And that's why in England, they also used to have this kinds of system, polytechnic, NCE arrangement and all of that. But it's got that these things they were not working well. So they fused them, upgraded them. The average Nigerian child who has gone to England, for example, to get a degree, go and ask him. The average, most of them are schooling in places that used to be polytechnics, who have now been converted to universities, because they have discovered that was a scam. You don't need to be wasting people's time and resources, putting them through 7 years of training when they can get all of that in only 4 years. In a modern society, really, the things we are doing in Dublin Nigerian University for 5 years, I tell you, I have experimented, as a researcher, and it has worked. All of that I can teach in only 1 month. What people spend in the university for 5 years.
You're going to cut 5 years down to 1 month.
Yeah, definitely. At some point, when I came back from England, I had my children at international school, and they were wasting their time. One was in SS1. I put him out of the school system. I finished his entire senior school in 1 year. And when he wrote international exam, he finished in the top 1% of candidates in the world. He's on his way to America to go and study physics because he wants to be, an astrophysicist, really. So it's not the length of time, it's also not money. I spent less and got better results. And we can do the same thing in the public space. We can spend less and get better results, provided we let the right people run the system. The people who came to teach my children, I trained them first and gave them the technology with which they were to train them. In only 1 year, they finished a 3-year war.
Now, part of the interventions we have seen over time from the federal government and even the state government is the creation of basic education boards. We have federal education, basic education, and the state basic education. Now, the truth of the matter is, this time around, 108 billion naira was allocated to state, basic, and federal. Now, this kind of interventions, in Lagos State, for instance, some other state of federation, I've seen people take their children from private schools to public school. They say public school is improving, particularly at the primary school level. Now, the role of these basic education boards at the federal and the state, would you say the funding has actually been adequate and it has actually helped in turning around this
There's a lot of money at that level. People may not know because it's federally determined. The constitution that we have now, I think that happened during Obasanjo's time, and we have to be, grateful to him for making that happen. The level of funding that is available for, basic education is fantastic and something that we should leverage to improve the quality of education in our country. Because if we lay that foundation and get it right, then secondary school becomes easy for the average Nigerian child to handle. Because by the time you're finishing secondary school, you have become truly literate. You can actually pick up books and go online on your own and acquire resources and train yourself in a lot of areas. We don't need the teacher all the time in a modern society. Just make sure the child, has the right motivation, self-motivated, and give him the right tools to get what he wants. So there's money, I can confirm that. But again, go and also look at the various states across the country. Who are the people who are the chairmen of those basic education boards? They are regular politicians who know nothing about education. So they just award contracts and they bring in their cronies.
With the exception of one, I can categorically tell you that
Okay.
the man who mans that of Oyo State is a product of education.
Excellent. So there may be a few exceptions,
Dr.
but generally when I speak, I say on the average.
On the average.
Yeah, most of them are not. They're just regular politicians. But even at that, even when you hear somebody is an educationist, where did the person study? How long ago did the person finish school? Has the person continued to upgrade? Has he been interacting with his colleagues from around the world to understand the latest, to know the latest thinking in the field? It's not just having a degree in education that we're discussing here. It's not just having a degree. Many people here have died because of wrong diagnosis of their health conditions. Those diagnoses were done by medical doctors. They are professors in some cases. One of my clients, got glasses from an optometrist, a professor in the area, from one of the top best universities Nigeria boasts of. But when she got to England and they re-examined her eyes, they discovered that it was a wrong diagnosis. And it was a child who was just about 4 years into his training in medical school that did that. It wasn't even a professor of comparable age and social status. So it's not just title. We're talking about, are people getting the right knowledge? Are they interacting with their colleagues at the global level to understand what's going on today? The improvements, the changes, the innovation, the complete turnaround that is happening in the education space for you to be able to help the people you have been given the opportunity to help. So yes, money is coming, coming through the Universal Basic Education Commission into the hands of all the states, but not completely, because there's something they call counterpart funding. Many states are not able to do that. So the money that is supposed to go to some of the states, they are not able to access the money because they are not dropping their own share in the equation. And so the children continue to suffer even when there's money lying fallow. And the banks are using such money to trade and make and earn easy interest.
All right, so let's look at some of the messages we have already. This person, you didn't tell me your name or your location. He said, the speaker has nailed it in the head. Illiterates are appointed to head education. He said, but what is the solution to Nigeria's education quagmire? Let me just take another one. He said, I'm enjoying, this is Lawrence from Bega. He said, I'm enjoying your guest. During my current interview for my professional certification, the guest interviewer, a lecturer from UNILAG, told me point blank that he's alien to my field of engineering. So he decided to engage me to know more. I ended up becoming a resource person to him. Talking about his lecturer. All right, another one. Say, hello, sir. I heard you. How can I get your phone number for personal issue? Maybe after the program, you can call this number, then I'll give you his number. All right, so...
Okay, maybe you want to
address
it.
What is the solution?
What's it?
We have been discussing. That's what we're talking about in an indirect way. Let the right people get into the space. We have to get to a point where we demonstrate patriotic spirit, to help our country to move forward. We can't continue to have these non-entities in public spaces and you'll be praying and, denying yourself for food, fasting, trying to get Nigeria to move forward. If you want Nigeria to move forward, you don't fast for Nigeria. All you need to do is to go, and insist that the right people have to run important spaces.
So how can we do that? An election is coming in the next 1 year. And we have people coming up. What should their agenda be about education? Is it I'm just talking about how people can get more involved in changing the face of our education. Should we have people should we scrutinize their agenda towards education?
No, again, Nigeria is not going to get it in the nearest future, really. So we will continue to make progress gradually.
You're scaring us for
that. Definitely. We will continue to, I studied international
You will not be a prophet of doom.
No, that's one of the challenges we have as a people. We put the wrong people in sensitive positions, and we now assume that because we are praying and believing that our God will help us, then we'll just wake up overnight and see development happen. We have been praying. I'm not under 50. Since I was born, I have been hearing that God will help us. It's going to get better. You know, you are not under 50. We have been going to church, we have been going to mosque and praying for this country. But we're not doing the right things. But I have been privileged to study in places around the world where people don't go to church. But they do the right things and they are enjoying excellent quality life. Go to Norway. When I went to Norway as a researcher, by the time I moved from Britain to Norway, by the time I finished my research in Norway and I was returning to, I landed at Heathrow Airport. Heathrow Airport was looking like my village to me. A country, they also have oil the way we have, but they have the right people in the right places who are using their oil money to make a difference. And they are not church people, they are not mosque people. They are people who believe in the value of science, objectivity, statistics, facts, and figures and principles. They use those things to run their society. And the society is the best place in the world anybody would ever want to live. Okay? So all this whole wastage going on in terms of how we use our time. We just waste our time in prayer houses and we are thinking that because we have prayed and we have fasted, we are just going to wake up and things will happen. No! Put the right people in the right places. Give your children good quality education. Your family will get better. Give Nigerian children the right quality education. Nigeria will get better. It's not mere prayer without action that is going to salvage this place.
Beyond all this that you have recommended, sir, you seem to have actually downplayed the essence of the money itself. Now, UNESCO that fixed 20%,
yes,
that's the minimum of the budgetary allocation,
yes,
for a particular year. I mean, why even in those advanced countries where things seem to be working the way you have told us, they are not spending less than, they are actually trying to meet up with the global recommendations. That's a UNESCO recommendation. Are you saying that there shouldn't be a minimum standard benchmark for budgetary allocation to education, irrespective of those other things being in place?
Those figures were bandied. We bandied them too out of ignorance. We must acknowledge that.
Including UNESCO?
Yes, including. If you go to UNESCO today, these are my colleagues. Because I'm a Nigerian, that's why I don't know my value. I operate with these people in the international space. UNESCO cannot tell you what you're saying on air. Your budget should reflect your peculiar circumstances as a people, as a society. What are our needs? Britain doesn't spend 25% of their budget on education, and they are doing better than you. It's not just about percentage. That's not what UNESCO used to say that decades ago. They are no longer saying that because technology has made life easy. The money you used to spend to train your children, like 10 years ago, you don't need that much money to train your children today because technology supports them. Why do you? The teacher doesn't.
You probably would need a laptop.
Education is more expensive.
It's more expensive.
Yeah, because you're Nigerians and you have not been properly trained. How much is it? Listen, okay. I will explain it to you.
You just spoke about light.
The average.
The studios and all that.
How much is light?
It's for us in Nigeria.
It's not a lot of.
It's a huge cost.
Forget about that.
Let's put your generators.
That's the challenge with Nigeria.
You spoke about UI. UI probably put on the generator for those classes to run.
Let's start with the lowest level of analysis. Let's start from the home. How much do you pay NEPA if they charge you properly for electricity? It's not more than 5,000 in a month. And that serves you a whole month.
More than that. Prepared is more than that.
Okay. I use prepared. I'm in Nigeria.
Depends on where
I live in Adeni just pays much more than the average neighborhood anywhere in the country. I live here. It's not the truth. I spend more on electricity. How much do you need to give your family access to quality internet access in a month? You don't need more than 10,000. I live in this society at this moment, especially when I'm in the country. I spend only 10,000 naira to give my children, my family now, one is abroad, the other one is here, and then I have my wife. We don't need more than 10,000 naira to power our internet. Only 10,000 naira. Those are the two things. 5,000 naira for electricity, 10,000 naira for internet access. That's all you need to get best quality education today. But we are spending millions on international schools. And then we take them to universities where they pay millions, and those universities say we are missionary school. Our children must not come to this place with phone, and we agree because we are worried about the morality of our children. What nonsense is that? How can you send somebody to university and deny him access to a smartphone, and you expect him to graduate and become globally competitive? It's not going to happen. So we just make assumptions. We are not doing the calculation, which is one of the problems with the Nigerian education system. Look at the issue we are analyzing now. Electricity, internet access. How much does it cost? 15,000 per month. And you give your children superior quality education that you are spending millions to get. You are giving the money to illiterates who are running private schools who don't know what they are doing. And you are sitting down here arguing that you need a lot of money. It's not money.
Are you not demarketing the private schools?
No, it's not about
illiterates who run the private schools.
Yes, I'm in the sector. I'm a researcher. I'm not just an ordinary Nigerian. I'm no longer at that level. I do research. I train this. I work with these people. I do research in the education space globally. The average owner of a private school in this country is a lawyer, is a medical doctor. And many people ask their wives to leave banking and they set up schools for them. Their wives have no business being in the education space. And they are running these places and they go and take. I told you, the person who brought me here went to school to learn education. He has left. And the people who took over from him are people who didn't study education because they're not paying educators well. And you're expecting that you're going to wake up and get all that you're looking for as a country.
All right,
we are time wasters.
Sorry, because of our time is up. But I actually still want you to just say, maybe in the next 1 minute, talk about these ASUU and federal government issues. You know, funding.
It's all about funding.
Yeah,
thank you, Jumoke.
It's a major issue between ASUU and the federal government, and we have been seeing a lot of strikes in the last few years.
Yeah.
Okay, so where they are now, do you envisage that we'll still have strikes this year, or that some of these issues will actually be addressed? Brought to an end.
Revolves around funding.
Yeah.
It's not going to. Those challenges will remain on the table because illiterates are operating at the political
So
space.
they don't see the necessity.
They don't
to
understand
sort
what
out
is going on. It's not only education that I studied. I'm a fellow of the Charter Institute of Personal Management of Nigeria. I understand what ASUU is also doing. When ASUU says better funding, it's not just better funding. ASUU is saying, pay us our salaries, give us money that enables us to work late and do our research. If you do those things for ASUU, pay them what you have agreed to pay them without them having to go and strike to get it, they will sit down and do proper job. They won't be worrying about all these things you're wasting time on. And many of them will get out of this country and use their intellectual resources and network, global network, to bring in money into this country. That's what some of us are doing. I'm bringing Facebook money into the country. You haven't done anything to help me to do that. Because I have the international network to do that. My friends are
doing so much. We're putting you on air.
Excellent. My friends are coming from Finland. I brought my colleague from Finland, about 2 years ago to come and train Nigerian teachers for free. International network. Those things would have cost Nigeria several millions of naira. We are getting that for free because we have the international network. It's not money you need all the time.
So you don't envisage a solution?
No. The people running the thing. Who is the person negotiating on behalf of government? Ngige is a medical doctor. He is the one handling Ministry of Labor and Productivity. When there are people who study human resources management, who study labor relations, why should a medical doctor be running such a critical ministry when we have professors of industrial relations, or personnel management, or business administration in the country?
All right.
Do you ever create time to study to look at the background of the people who run your country for you? It is a bunch of illiterates.
All right, sir. Let me just read 1 or 2 messages before we leave. This person says, the man in the studio with you is indeed educated. He has educated many of us watching this program. Thank you. He said he needs his number. Well. Let me just read one more. He said, hello, sir. I heard you. Okay, that's the same person. All right, so that's all. We really need to go.
What has government done so well that you want to commend them? I mean, there's one thing that government has fixed, one problem that government has fixed.
I have identified one. I told you when Obasanjo was in government, he created Universal Basic Education Commission. That was a fantastic
idea. Must have also done one thing.
Well, we have to go and pray and find out.
All right. Thank you so much. Our guest today is Mr. Peter Ogudoro. He's an education researcher and also the leader Nigeria's teachers online community. Thank you so much, sir, for this education this morning.
It's my pleasure.
Yeah, my name is Jumoke Michaels. I'll see you again on Monday for another edition of the program. Bye-bye.
I've equally been educated, Jumoke, I must tell you, but it was a bit too harsh with our educational handlers. Next time, be a bit soft. My name is Banji Busari. See you again next week.